previous competitors had their ads paused because they were going through an acquisition, and now they're back. And now there's also even more competitors in the space. So you're dealing with an increased competition, right? So that's one thing. Then you have the macroeconomic environment. Like for food brands, some food brands are going to struggle more, and beverage brands will struggle more during recessionary times because that's when people are going to cut back on those budgets. So what category are you playing in? And are you more prone to be exposed to macroeconomic shifts? That's the one thing. And then the last thing I would say is like sometimes the same creative that you've been working with or running just dries up. Like I've been finding UGC videos to be working a lot less lately. And something I thought was going to come for a long time, just like UGC fatigue. Right, on some of these videos. So sometimes it's like, let's go with a fucking wildly different creative.
Yeah.
And it's a risk, but I found that throwing something insanely different out there can basically hit a whole new audience, register with a whole bunch of different new people. So going in a completely different creative direction than you've completely gone in is like, honestly, that's usually the first place I start. Like, yo, the account's not working. This is all messed up. We know the conversion rate's high. We know all the other stuff's dialed, but the ad account's not. Let's do something really different with creative. That's usually my first go-to because that's the easiest and most addressable. Macroeconomic and what competitors are doing aren't really in my control, but I think it's important to take note of. But what is in my control is a wildly different creative swing.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I literally was right before this was on a call with a meta rep and she was showing a client like creative fatigue. And she's like, these are two different assets that you uploaded, but like they look so similar that Meta thinks they're the same. And I don't know if she's like full of shit or if she like it's actually true. Like these have they're different videos, they're slightly different, but like the style is so similar that it's hitting the same group of people with the same type of thing. So like you're hitting creative fatigue, even though you're uploading different assets. It's just like it's the same shit basically. It's resonating the same way. That's really interesting. And the other thing I'll comment on that is like we had a client who they sell it's food. It's protein bars, simply put. And like we were running an offer for their variety pack and it was doing okay. And we're like, you know what? Like let's do something, let's throw 40% off on it and just see what happens. Like it's really hard to make money on 40% off, but like especially first order profit. But like let's just see what happens. And we went from like just relative numbers here, like a 1.5 to a 5, right? And now the 5 is probably not going to scale, but that was a dramatically different thing. So that's interesting that you call that out. Because like we never would if it was up to my lizard brain to decide on running that or not, I would have said no because the CAC to make profit on that was so stupid. It didn't make sense. And it hit anyways. So that's interesting.
Yeah, the thing is, Facebook in terms of what that Facebook rep showed you about the creative being so similar, the algorithm thinks it's the same. That's absolutely true. They have like a graph in one of their decks,
Yeah.
and Facebook doesn't know the difference, so it'll serve it to the same people, which the is sometimes fine, right? If you want a wildly different creative to go to wildly different people and make something really fucking different. But I think like sometimes those little iterations, while Facebook might not think they're the same, it might hook the viewer differently. And that's where it's like, what are you trying to do? Well, if I know this audience is converting well, I'm just trying to make small improvements to this ad to get my ROAS from X to X, then making, a small iteration to that ad to potentially boost up hook rate to then boost up click-through rate. And then if the conversion rate holds your Gucci, then you do that. But if it's like, hey, none of this type of creative is consistently bombing, it's like, yeah, like go with something fucking really weird.